Welcome to Tech This Way.
Anyway, thanks a lot, man, for coming in. I think the first time I met you was when you were in Apple still, five, 6 years ago.
The trip to Cupertino.
Yeah,
Right?
trip there.
That's where we started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
not a secret, right?
That was not. I don't know on your side,
no.
so not anymore. So yeah, that was a trip. To see the insights.
Yeah.
The fact that okay, first thing you do is like keep your phones away, keep all recording devices out, right?
And it doesn't just apply to visitors, that's to employees as well.
Yeah.
That's how strict they are. In fact, one of my colleague on his very first day.
Do you want to bring that mic down a little bit and then it's closer to you? Yeah. It's better.
On his very first day at work was at the Infinite Loop. And he was
already
okay. And he was so excited. He got there. The moment he stepped inside, he took out his phone. Started taking photos here and there. Straight away, the security came, and literally threatened to get him fired on the spot.
Because surely there was already the security briefing and all that, right? Not to do this kind of thing.
No, actually, not. No, because for us, we are based here. We wouldn't have been briefed about the norms over there in the States, right? So we were not told, apart from whatever you would have heard from the grapevine or even in reading outside, a lot of this type of news get captured outside. But literally on his day, he got a scare of his life, was going to get fired on the spot. And that's how serious they are. The security guard can fire you.
Right? I mean, that's empowering, man.
So thankfully, his manager was around. His manager was on the same trip with him, and then had to step in and explain and plead and all that. And this is a real story, because I know the bugger. So this is not like I heard from someone else who,
not some urban legend.
It's not an urban legend. This happened to a Malaysian who shall remain nameless for now.
Trust Malaysian who. Did you get to go to the loop?
Yes, yeah. So I'm quite lucky, I'm one of a handful of Malaysian, even regional employees who have managed to go there to the loop, and also I think even a smaller subset of people who have been inside the Steve Jobs Theatre.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one in the basement or something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where we host all the launches now, right? All the iPhone launch. So I think even if you go there now as a visitor or even as an employee on a work trip, you probably can't get into the Steve Jobs Theatre. So I was fortunate enough to have gotten in.
So that's really just for launches, then you get your invitees only.
Everything is so top secret over there.
So what's the highlights of the building that you saw yourself?
The highlights of the building, it's amazing, right? There's so much greenery. I think that's the first thing that jumped out at me. So even though it's a brand new development, right? So essentially we took over, I think it was an old HP campus.
Right.
We knocked down everything and rebuilt everything. But we, in the spirit of sustainability and all that, we really kept all the trees, So it's not like, here, if you go to a new development.
Wipe out was there.
Right?
Clean slate.
Exactly.
Right.
But there they kept all the greenery, they kept all the trees. So it's really green. Everything is really top quality,
As you would expect.
Yeah. So even I hate to say it, like Jakun like that, even the toilets were amazing,
So how amazing can an amazing toilet be?
Maybe offline I show you the pictures later.
But you're not supposed to. That it was forwarded to you.
Yes,
right.
yeah. No, actually, interestingly, I think recently, I'm talking about just a few weeks or maybe the max is 1 or 2 months ago, I recall seeing a video on YouTube that a visitor actually published quite a in-depth video of his trip there. So I don't know whether this was sanctioned as,
Oh, I'll Google
part
that.
of PR or whatever.
Check out YouTube.
Or I was wondering when is it going to be taken down?
Right.
Yeah.
Or somebody on the way out to of Apple.
No.
I'll just do it. And...
This guy is not an employee. He's a
Oh, I see.
visitor.
He's a visitor.
He's a visitor.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was amazing. The windows, so it's like a spaceship, right?
Right, the donut.
And it's a 360 windows, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what black magic they do there, but the windows are amazingly clean. Okay. So from the inside, you look outside to the greenery. Sometimes you even forget
There's a window.
There's a window there. So must be some high tech. Don't know. Who knows? It's
Some
a product Apple will
nanotech
release later on.
Cleaning thing, right? For the
Yeah.
windows. Oh, okay.
So I remember even then we were talking about it because when I went there, it was before it was fully operationalized. It was before everybody has moved in.
Okay.
Right. But it was already functional, but
Right.
they are moving people in stages. But I remember some of us were saying that, I'm sure a lot of people will walk into it by mistake. There'll be a lot of injury.
No stickers lah, like here.
Back then, no sticker. I think now they put sticker already.
Yeah.
Because interestingly enough, after that trip, a couple of weeks, then I recall reading in the press, over there they take all these things quite seriously, So I think part of the inspection or whatever by the local council, they actually called it out as an issue because people were getting injured walking into it. Birds were flying into it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That's how
Now
clean
that's
it was.
clean.
Yeah.
Right? That is so transparent
Exactly,
you can't even
yeah.
see.
By the way, you realize whatever I'm telling you now are all public information. You can always
So it's okay lah.
always get to put that disclaimer.
Cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then after Apple, so in fact, let's go back further lah. Right?
Yeah.
In your interesting journey, and because I know you had quite a bit of an interesting stuff before
Yeah.
joining Apple.
Yeah.
Go as far back as you want, man.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, I don't think I've formally introduced myself. I think your audience is probably wondering who is this guy, right? In fact, I wanted to ask you as well, why invite me? Because when I look at all the people you've invited so far, they all, somebody who's done it quite a lot,
Right.
who's achieved quite significant or in a senior position somewhere, And right now, officially, I don't have, I'm jobless.
Right.
So I kind of feeling like a minister without portfolio or that, coming here to talk to you.
Well, there's two things to that, right?
Yeah.
One is the Apple story, right?
Right.
Or as much that you can share,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think it's also there's two other things. As I got to know you, I also found out, from yourself on how you had your own startup before and you had cashed out on that, right? So I thought that would be an interesting journey to find out, right?
Yeah.
Or if you didn't, well, let's find out now, lah.
Yeah.
And then after that, what you've been doing to keep yourself busy after Apple, right?
Yeah.
So, you've gone into mentoring a lot of these companies and all that.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
obviously, you must have built that network, whether because of Apple or despite Apple. So it'll be interesting to see how, what's all that about.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So there you go, lah. So you can,
Right. Yeah. So I think maybe before I dive straight into that, like what I mentioned earlier on, I found that your format currently is very open-ended, right? And some can take very long. So if I just relate it to myself, sometimes when I start one of your podcasts, I don't know whether I'll commit to it because I don't know what's going to be what's going to be covered, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just as a courtesy to the audience is, just let me share with you some of the things that I want to talk about. Right?
Sure.
And these are the things that
So I have no notes. So,
Yeah.
you can go anywhere with this.
Yeah, clean table, same here, no notes, no nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously I'm gonna talk a bit about my experience so far. Yeah, I think it has been quite fortunate. I've gone through quite a unique experience from my working life, and I'll expand a bit more what I mean about that. How in a lot of cultures or even in a lot of countries, they have this problem of people overworking and even working to death, right?
Yeah. Fully.
So I bring a very interesting story in the sense that I'm the opposite, right?
Okay.
I will probably be dead if not for one of the companies I worked for, right? So that caught your interest, right? So stay tuned, okay? So I'm going to talk a bit about that. And then, of course, that will cover my background. Then I'm going to talk about what's keeping me busy nowadays. And I think in that, I will talk a bit about prop tech. So whoever has any interest in prop tech,
interesting.
Yeah, from a user perspective, yeah. I'm also quite interested in agri-tech area and in IoT, right? So for those who are who have any interest in that, then you can listen on. Make sure you don't miss that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on that, I had a 354 in
a
couple of months ago.
Okay.
So that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of COVID, right?
Right.
So they were just about to open their farm, and then
yeah,
like shit,
and I think
shut down.
now they are raising through ECF and all that, right?
Correct,
yeah, interesting. I've not met them before, but
cool
that'd be
bunch of guys.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm currently on a break. So I left my last job at Apple in the middle of April. So I was there for about 7+ years.
April this year.
April this year, right? So that's a story to that. It's not retrenchment. It's not because of COVID or anything like that. It's actually a long story, lah. We've
got time.
Yeah, we've got time. Yeah. Sometime late last year, I decided I wanted to take a break, right? So I've been there for 7+ years. Kind of achieve what I wanted to achieve. Some of the things that we did locally are pretty awesome, and considered.
Give me a sec.
Yeah, it's your notification. Some of the things that my team and I achieved are pretty much recognized even globally as being quite good stuff. So that's when I decided I wanted to take a break, right? So I tendered my resignation in September last year, before COVID, and of course back then nobody knew the better, right? September, but then we negotiated. My last day was supposed to have been in end of January.
The standard 3 months or plus.
Yeah, so it's slightly more than that, which is fine. Also gives you the message that I don't need to justify, but basically I was living on good terms. And that's why we plan all these things out properly.
A proper handover.
Yeah, proper handover. But then came January, and they asked me to extend. So okay, I extend to middle of April. So all that was by design. So that's why the end date was quite odd. A lot of people thought it was COVID related or whatever, but no. It's not.
But that's a bit brave though. To normally you'll have something lined up before you go out, right?
Yeah.
So you just decided, I'm gonna just take a break.
Yeah, I think after a while, I think to be fair, thankfully I'm in a position where I can make that decision. I know a lot of people can't. So I'm thankful I have that ability, but it doesn't mean I'm fully loaded and I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I don't have a shift.
But you've got enough, you got a buffer.
I've got a buffer, So and I guess the other reason is I'm a guy who is very committed once I'm into something, right? So as long as I'm tied to Apple, I wouldn't have the bandwidth to look outside for anything else. I'll be just so focused on doing that job and doing a great job that I just wouldn't have time to look at anything else. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, never mind, just take a break. And actually, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, right? With COVID, with a lot of kids doing e-learning from home.
Yeah.
At least one of the parent like myself can be at home full time to take care of her.
How many kids do you have?
I only have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old is he?
She's 8. Yeah. And
that's a good age to be spending time with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's only starting school next week. Going back to school next week.
She's been home. Yeah, she's been home. Standard 2 lah.
Yeah.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Year 2 lah. Yeah.
Year 2.
But then even once her school starts next week, they are practicing alternating weeks. So 1 week in school, 1 week e-learning and all that. Hopefully they quickly figure out how to go back full time. Yeah.
So that was a blessing, as you were saying.
Yeah, so that was a blessing.
April that you were home.
Yeah. So that was good. But anyway, yeah. So coming back to Apple, at Apple, I was hired in about 7+ years ago to set up their enterprise channel. So if you recall, I think Apple only really started to take notice of the enterprise space around that time, about 8-9 years ago, right? And then they dabbled in a few areas, and finally they've decided to put in a proper team, and that's when they started to hire. So I was brought in to set up the enterprise channel for Malaysia, right?
And that was about the time when they had the partnership with IBM and all that, right?
No, way before that.
Okay.
Yeah, way before
So
that.
even before they did.
Yeah, before that.
Okay.
So that, and over the years, my portfolio grew, right? So from just handling the channel, then I started to, at one point, I was also dealing with the carriers, the telcos, right? So, sorry, internally, American company, we call it carrier. Here we call it telco, right? So trying to build up the telcos enterprise business with us, and then over time the portfolio expanded more and more. I started to do into customer engagement as well, right? More into end customer engagement. So actually at that time when I was dealing with Maybank, that wasn't my full-time job yet. It was more from a channel perspective. Right. I was still more channel focused. But in the last 2 or 3 years, was really going a lot deeper with enterprise customers and users. And after that, they also piled on the education portfolio on me.
Okay.
So yeah lah. So after a while, it's like everything lah. The buck stops at me lah, as far as their commercial business is concerned. Right? So that's my 7+ years with Apple. Before that, I was with Microsoft for 9 years, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were longer with Microsoft?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was Microsoft for 9 years. And one thing you realize, I talk about how dedicated I am. Typically, once I'm into a job, I stay quite long term as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So in Microsoft, I think a lot of people will recall or relate to me as the ISV guy or the developer guy. Because that's essentially what what I spend a lot of time in. Back in Microsoft, working with ISVs, independent software vendors. One time I was heading the developer relations team. That's where we look at all types of developers. Startups, ISVs, even end customers. That means the professional developers. So I spent 9 years there.
What was your relationship with Avanade?
Avanade was one of our partners.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Because then I was with the Accenture at that point,
Yeah.
right? So we were of course working with
Correct.
Avanade, which is the.
So wasn't Avanade?
We invested in.
Right.
It was between Avanade, Accenture and Microsoft, right?
Correct. So I think that's more at a global level, but then for all intents and purposes, locally, we just look at Avanade as one of our partners.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we are not involved with them operationally or anything like that, right? So that was that.
Okay.
So in Microsoft, kind of the same as well. I started off with a small portfolio and then started growing bigger and bigger and bigger. I think the interesting thing is within, even comparing between Microsoft and Apple, it's like kind of like polar opposites in terms of from a company, the culture and how they manage the company and all that. So for example, in Microsoft, we do encourage people to move around. To get different experiences.
Oh, within Microsoft, right?
within the company, right? Or even outside of the subsidiary and all that, right? So so even just within Microsoft itself, I've pretty much gone through everything.
You did your tour,
I did my tour, right? I was hired into the SMB team to look at again partners, competitive partner recruitment. Interesting, competitive partner recruitment. And there was a specific group of partners that we wanted to go after.
Right.
A segment, not group,
right,
not identified yet. A segment of partners we wanted to go after. Then from there, the portfolio grew, and then after that, from SMB, I also moved into enterprise. That's how they segmented it, name accounts and non-name accounts, right? So I moved into the enterprise partner group as well. Did a stint there, and then after that. Move over to the what we call DPE, but externally, I think the easiest way to relate to it is developer relations.
Okay.
Right. So this team works with all the technical audiences, developers and IT pros. Right. So and then over time, all the startup companies, ISVs, professional developers, and then what we call IT professionals as well. All that was under this team. Yeah. So very different. So in Microsoft, we ask you to move around every few years, literally as part of your career plan.
Right.
Every 3 years, your boss will ask you, "Hey, what do you want to do next?
What next?
Time to get out."
And in Apple?
In Apple, it's very different. right? So in Apple, we tend to we believe in specialists, right? So if you look at it, first of all, is we hire specialists, and then we expect you to be very good at it and go deep into it,
Right.
right? So it's very different from Microsoft, right? Yeah. So talking about hiring specialists, one thing you may know is that also in Apple we tend to hire quite experienced people. You know, we don't hire freshies and all that. At least not in this part of the world anyway. Maybe in the US, I think they have internship programs, but over here we hire already specialists, and then we expect you to just get better and better and better, and you know, yeah.
Operationally, between the two, was there a lot of short of a better word, meddling from Seattle or from
So that's where it's very different as well, right? So in Microsoft, I hope it's still the same now, but at least back then, a lot of the plans and all that were bottoms up.
Ah, cool.
You know, and that's where we really could put our knowledge to the test, lah. You know. So we literally, of course, you have the high level goals. They will come and tell you these are what you need to achieve for this year, and all the matrix is there. But we have a lot of say locally how we want to achieve that goal. You know, and again, talking about the polar opposites, right? Apple is quite different. You know, a lot of the things is top down. You know, but I think that's fundamentally it also goes back to how the company started, you know, as the whole journey, how they've evolved to where they are. Apple is very much a product company, right? I mean, we build great products to some extent. We build great products, customers will line up to buy. Yeah. You know, and
literally do.
Yeah. And that's it, right? Whereas I think for a company like Microsoft is great products, but at the same time also, I guess, more competition, you know, and in the space where competition may not necessarily always be just about better features or better price or whatever, but you know, in the enterprise space, I always like to explain it. There's also a salesmanship involved, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sure you've met your fair share of very good salesmen. They can sell anything, right? So in the enterprise space, like where Microsoft is in, that's where it's slightly more different. They needed more, give more flexibility to the local team.
I guess with Apple, especially with the devices, right?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
How are you gonna spin that, right? If you wanted to anyway, right? You just to be in the usage, like, I guess. Really.
Correct. So I think that's where in the enterprise space, that's where some of the differentiation started to get more profound. You know, I would say, hats off to Apple. I think in the last 3 to 5 years, they've really put in a lot of. I would say there were some good decisions. Of course, there were some bad decisions as well. But there were some good decisions, like in terms of how they strengthened their enterprise capability in terms of device management, right? So security, manageability, and all that. Yeah. I think they've done an amazing job there. And that kind of changed the conversation we've been having, even locally. You know, when I was there in the earlier days to, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 years. Yeah, we finally had a lot of answers to a lot of the questions that customers ask. You know,
actually, it'll be curious for a lot of people to realize that Apple has even an enterprise or business market, right?
Oh, that's the amazing thing, right? Yeah.
Because so maybe you want to go deep into that a little bit, because as far as most people know, well, it's about phones and iPads and watches, lah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very consumer. Yeah. So I can understand if I have a company, then I'll use a lot of tablets, right, for my front salespeople, for example. But that's pretty much it, lah, right? So, but how far do you guys push the corporate side?
It is from how, in terms of how Apple monetizes the enterprise business, it is the same set of products, right? So whatever you can walk into machines and buy on Apple Store in Singapore or Thailand, it's the same products, right? Whatever they have there is the same thing that my team sold to customers, right? But it is about then getting customers like banks or insurance company to roll out mobile solutions that's going to make their employees more productive and more efficient. And because you're going to roll out on mass, you want to choose a platform that you
Mm.
have confidence in, right? So things that matters to a large enterprise company like security, manageability, your return on investment, right? And things like that. So
But
that's how
but Apple themselves do not roll out those applications.
we
per
don't build
se,
the solution.
right? So
Yeah.
how did you guys play that role?
Yeah. So
bridge
that's
it?
where it depends on the customer. Yes, an application needs to be built, right? So it depends. Those who have in-house capability will build their own. But even then, we have a value to play in terms of we will run briefings to their developers, sharing things like best practices, right? So even though the developer program is pretty mature and lots of documentations are there, but I think people being people, they don't always read from A to Z, from cover to cover, right? So a lot of things they just assume and then they take shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
Then that's where sometimes we'll go in, try to understand what they're trying to build, and then we will be able to give feedback. Hey, here are some considerations you want to focus on, right? Or here are some new technology that we've just released you may want to tap on, right? So that's on one extreme end where the customer has their in-house capability. And then moving down that spectrum, some of them will outsource, and they have their own preferred vendor, and then that's fine. Then we will then get involved to brief them as well, what to do, what not to do, and things like that. All the way to, on the other extreme end, there are some customers who don't build and they believe in buying, and that's where we have opportunity to introduce local partners to them.
Right.
Yeah, well, either local or regional partners.
But partners essentially, right?
Partners lah. Yeah. So we don't build. I think a lot of customers have asked, hey, why don't Apple fund this and build this for us? Yeah, that's just not what we do. Yeah.
So you were there. Was Steve Jobs still around when you were there? Or
No.
was
So
Cook
we
already?
missed each other.
Yeah.
I joined after he has departed.
Because I wanted to ask, how did the culture change at all?
Yeah, no, I can't answer.
You wouldn't
that.
know, yeah.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I mean, just taking from my own perspective, I was never an Apple user prior to joining Apple. I think most people would have at least used an iPod or an iPad, right? But I've never owned one or used one before.
And being in Microsoft, you'll be
and
using
exactly, right? So I was the
Windows,
biggest ambassador for
Windows
Microsoft.
Mobile. What was the mobile OS for Microsoft?
Windows Phone.
Windows Phone.
Yeah, I think I left when it was Windows Phone 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I still remember that, right? So I was one of the biggest ambassador, if you will, right, of Microsoft products. But yeah, interestingly, Apple decided to hire me anyway, and but once you're in, it's amazing. Now I'm so in love with the product. It's going to be very hard to get back out. The whole ecosystem is so strong.
Yeah. I mean, no need to espouse it anymore, lah. But as far as I'm an Android guy myself, lah, right? But then I have to give it to Apple in terms of build, and in terms of just smooth, creamy UX. It's like it's so nice.
Yeah, the build quality, I think a lot of people underestimate, or they may not always consider that.
But I think it's key, especially for me. The turning point was really iPhone 4, right? When that black beauty came out, I was like, wow, you can hardly feel the seams.
That's right.
Like, man, this is like engineered so well.
So
right?
things like that matter a lot to enterprise customers, and I think that's where we, as long as budget is not as long as the customer is not totally cash strapped, I think we can help them to justify from an ROI perspective, right? The hardware quality build, Again, just from a personal experience, I do tend to recycle. I do tend to sell some of my older devices as I upgrade. So just a couple of weeks ago, I sold off this my wife's iPad Pro 12.9 inch. I think the first generation. Right?
Okay.
5 years old.
And you could still sell.
So it's a 5-year-old device. Well, it was launched 5 years ago, lah. Okay, maybe 4-year-old device. I sold it for 2.1K.
Wow.
So the residual value is extremely high. There's a strong demand.
I have not been able to sell any of my old devices because they don't last that long.
There you go.
First of all, the battery goes lah. Although I'm sure Apple has that the battery issues too, but mine was like okay, it's dead. And then the just build quality lah. Right?
Yeah.
And then the whole thing kind of slows down and all that. So I have to give it to Apple for that lah.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly. Anyway, so
Yeah.
so going back to Microsoft,
Yeah.
then and prior to that,
So prior to that, I was with IBM for 4
you
years.
just hit all the big names, right?
All the big names lah, yeah lah. So that's why after a
the
while
the
also,
ultimate corporate IT guy, right?
Hey, you know, actually you and I have a bit of history, some common themes as well. You know.
Oh, really?
So Accenture was my first job actually.
No.
When
What year
it
was
when it was still called Anderson Consulting.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
I didn't know that.
but I was there only for a very short time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
Was Bangunan Pernas then? Or where were you? It's consulting. Or was it MCOP?
MCOP. It was in MCOP.
Ah, okay.
It was in MCOP. Yeah. So that was my first job.
I
Hired
see.
in, you know, fresh from university.
Right.
Super excited, right? That's the dream job everybody back then.
Yeah. That was a snazzy office too, lah.
Yeah,
At that point,
yeah.
at that time. Yeah.
But I was there only for 4 months.
Oh, okay. Oh, tell me about that. That's interesting. So, what happened? So that was the first job.
That was my
okay.
first job.
Right.
You know. I don't know lah. Some people may say, "Hey, 4 months not counted lah," but it was my first job lah. You know,
Right.
I got
It's the
EPF.
first paycheck, man.
Yeah,
Counts.
paycheck, EPF, everything record is there, right?
Yeah.
Employee number is there. So I was so I'm a mechanical engineer by training,
Okay.
right? From UK. So I guess on CV looked kind of technical lah. You
Right.
know.
You
and
sure
then-
you're from university that's recognizes your
Oh yeah,
qualification,
yeah.
I don't know. You can say anything.
Never mind. I have the cert. No, right?
Your
Well,
certs
actually,
so far.
Technically, my university doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, what was that? No, you say of London too. Eh?
Interesting. No, so I came from University of Manchester. UMIST.
You miss, okay.
Right?
What do you mean it doesn't exist anymore?
Technically, it doesn't exist anymore because I think I can't remember the year. UMIST and University of Manchester merged.
I didn't know that.
So these two.
Because I actually, it was one of my options. You
Ah,
miss, right?
okay.
Then I went there. It was raining every day. I was like, okay, lah, I don't want to be in Manchester.
Hey, which part of England doesn't rain every day?
But Manchester was a little bit
Yeah,
more.
lah. Okay, lah. Agree, lah.
Anyway, Oh, okay. So I didn't know they merged.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, so
they-
you were at UMIS?
I was
McCann.
at
That was
at
one of the best
UMIS.
schools, man.
Yeah.
For McCann. Yeah.
Correct. So for McCann, she was quite good, lah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. So they merged. I think the idea was the two of them were supposed to merge to become the kind of like the third force in the UK, lah, behind Cambridge and Oxford.
Hmm.
You know. So that was the idea why they merged, lah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think now technically it's just called University of Manchester, lah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a problem justifying your cert, right?
Never mind. I got my MBA cert to prove that one still exists.
So okay. So then you came back, joined Accenture.
So I joined
Anderson
Accenture, Anderson Consulting. That was the year they changed name.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so mechanical engineer. I found myself being groomed or being positioned for very technical roles.
Hmm.
You know.
Did you join the tech group or?
That's the funny thing. I was in the process group, right? I mean,
Yeah lah, process.
the
Odd few one who
listeners may not
understand.
understand, but then that's how they were segmented. Right? So process wasn't meant to be that technical. But somehow I was being sent for trainings, and my first project was in a very technical role.
Right.
You know, and I knew that wasn't something I wanted to go into.
Okay.
You know, so I still remember they sent me for Siebel technical architecture training.
Right.
You know, Siebel was
For a process guy.
For a process guy, right?
That's a bit odd.
And of all things, for technical architecture training, for me, a freshie. I mean, I hope I don't get anybody in trouble. You know, they probably made the wrong bet on me. Somebody made the wrong recommendation. They sent me for 2 weeks of this training in Singapore. And I still remember for the first time in my life, I felt overwhelmed. You know, so I came from a good academic background, good university, first class honors and all that, on top of my world, you know.
Yeah.
And
then join Anderson Consulting. Hey,
then they
all
sent
good,
me for
right?
this training. It's like, what the hell are you all talking about? You know.
Yeah.
And everyone else in that training was easily 10-15 years experience, you know. So then after a while they threw me into one of the projects in Singapore. Again, going into a very technical role.
A Siebel project down there.
Then that's when I decided, no lah, this is not what I want to do. You know, it was going too deep, too narrow a focus. So I decided, okay lah, still early, you know, doesn't matter.
Right.
Just 4 months, so I just standard and left lah.
Okay.
Before they sent me to Chicago.
You missed the trip.
No, I had to leave before the
I
trip,
see, so
right? Otherwise they bond me for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So then what did you do? So you came back here?
So I came back. No, so after I left, then I applied to IBM. IBM back then they had this program called Team Blue.
Okay.
Which is it's like a management trainee program, right? So once a year they will open up and they'll bring in a batch of people, like a cohort, right? Supposedly the cream of the crop for that year. They bring you in and they put you through structured training.
Okay.
This
was where?
Malaysia.
Okay.
Yeah. So how long was it now? It was 3 months. At least 3 months or 6 months of structured training.
Okay.
So literally,
it's really long.
Yeah.
To not squeeze any money out of you guys.
And hats off to IBM for
That's investment.
Yeah, willing to invest. Right? And so they literally put us through series and series of classroom training, and then after that on the job training. So part of that training, they assign you to work on projects with different teams. So the idea is you get exposure to different parts of IBM.
Right.
And then at the end of it, you need to decide and then try to apply into that role, into those teams. So that's so I always credit IBM for giving me my foundation. Some of the things that my thinking and philosophy in life was all down to the training in IBM.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was IBM. I spent about 4 years there. In fact, I would say one of my role change there was something that really gave me the confidence of my capability. And after that really gave me a big morale boost. Again, being quite a freshie in an IBM where people of 20, 30 years tenure is not uncommon.
Yeah.
Being a freshie. One of the jobs that I moved into, after a while I realized, that manager really took a big bet on me, because he's a regional manager. He sits in Singapore. Again, it's a developer relations team. And when I look back at the rest of my peers in the other countries, again, were people of at least 15 years experience.
So in fact, that's your... So I was going to ask that, you were saying how you were going down this technical route. And now you're telling me you joined IBM.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't a technical role in IBM. It was a developer relationships as well.
Correct.
Not as well. Your first one, in fact.
Yeah,
right?
My first one. So even in IBM, it was very much, I would say, it's a channel role. I did a few jobs in IBM. It's always been very channel-centric. Yeah.
Okay, but at least with you must still have a head for technology, right? Because you're talking the language, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think the passion is there, but I think from a competency perspective, I would say it's more of ecosystem development, channel development, if you will. Yeah. Actually, it's quite interesting. If I look back at my experience, honestly, I think I've been quite blessed to have gotten such a unique variety of experience, right? See, most people will go in and, they will stay deep into one area. Either you're a salesperson who covers, some are even worse, they stay with the industry forever, right? In tech, so I know people who are salespeople, very good, but they only sell to banks.
Right.
Right, and that's their niche, which is great. They make a lot of money and they know all the banking customers inside out. That's what I mean, right? Or some people who will take the other path, which is channel, and then forever they stay with channel. But in my case, if I would look back at my 20 years, is I've done channel, so even within channel, I've done a different variety, right?
Different industries, right?
I've done resellers, I've done ISVs, I've done startups, I've done SIs, global companies, local companies. And then on the other hand, I've also had the opportunity to go into customers as well, and customer engagement, right? So that means having the opportunity to talk to end users themselves, right? In again, banks, airlines, insurance, healthcare, and all that. And even SME, right? So from SME to large enterprise, which a lot of people may not necessarily get experience. On top of that, I have the opportunity to also talk about the experience, channels and ecosystems and all that. And of course, being with Apple, can't escape. Sometimes I also get dragged in and start to learn about the consumer business a bit here and there. So in self-reflection in looking back, I think that's one amazing thing of my journey in having had this opportunity to had this such a wide variety of experience. And I think that is that has worked out quite well in terms of some of the coaching and mentoring work that I do now
Right.
for a lot of the startup companies, right? Because I can talk a bit about everything,
So you've seen that, yeah.
I can give a lot of.
And one of the challenges, if you like, when you do grow up, especially in the corporate world, right, and then you were to switch, whether between channels or different customer base, your career tends to stall a little bit as you adjust, right? Because, okay, suddenly it's a new. First of all, to even do the switch is something that you will think twice about, right? Because you've built your networks,
Correct.
especially that, right?
Yes.
You've built your network, and now suddenly to go find a new group of people you need to connect with.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is for yourself, somehow it's just gonna float quite nicely, right? The career continued as well. Right?
I think at the end of the day, there are, even though it might be like different industry and different audiences, but at the end of the day, the fundamentals are the same, right? There's always a bit of structure in terms of how you approach certain things. In the sense that it's always about the people, right? It's always about figuring out what values to the guy that you're talking to on the other end, right? Be it a customer or be it a partner. And I think this is, again, credit to my background in engineering, where essentially is everything, there's a solution to everything. It's just a matter of breaking it down into smaller chunks, right?
Right.
Yeah. And also credit to my training in IBM. I don't know whether if they still do it, but one of the core foundation of IBM training is this Stephen Covey's 7 Habits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they actually took that and turned it into a syllabus, if you like, and then trained people.
So
on it.
I think we went through 2 weeks of training.
Oh wow.
And all of us got a book, and I embraced that, So things like think win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if
and
it's
things
not.
like that.
Yeah, it's not the. These days it's all startup design sprints and 1 and zeros lah. But in our days, it was the Stephen Covey, right? That was the Bible,
Correct,
management
correct.
Bible.
Yeah. So that to me is always my foundation.
Okay. So that led to where you are now, right? So you've picked up all that pieces of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And then how did you suddenly now land into lots of mentorship and support for
Yeah. So I think that is something I always enjoy doing. So even back in Microsoft and all that, I always enjoy giving back in terms of either mentoring. Maybe we don't officially call it mentoring then, right? But I always give back in terms of my time. People want to talk to me or whatever, giving them advice and all that. I think that's just part of my nature, and I think just people should just do more of that as a way of giving back to the community, right? So yeah, even back in Microsoft, I was very involved in the startup ecosystem back then. I think you weren't, so you may not. That's where we didn't cross paths before then. But even back then, I was already doing a lot of startup competition. I was mentoring some startups and things like that.
So this was
In fact,
a good 10 years ago.
Yeah, a good 10 years ago, right? In fact, I think one of the things I really enjoy in my job in the past has always been able to help some of these local companies grow, to be either just by using our network,
Right.
Our company name, being where we are, being able to bring them to see customers.
I guess, yeah. So at that point when
Introduce
you were in
them.
Microsoft, I guess the foot in to them would be to support them with the weight of Microsoft behind you, lah.
Yeah.
Right? So hey, let us.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
whether it's development skills or customer pipelines, right?
So I'll share this story. I hope he doesn't mind me talking about him. But one of the things that I still really respect Microsoft is the development, the amount of investment they put in actually developing from the ground up, from students, to startups and things like that, right? So you know Bunsheng, Zilnex?
No.
Zilnex? No.
No.
It's a point of sales company.
Okay.
right? Young chap, I think he's only in his early 30s or whatever, it's a point of sales company that's doing quite well. I think from employee size, from last I heard, it's probably about 80, close to 100 by now. Was acquired a few years ago, and still growing, doing quite well, right? But if I were to, so this to me is always one of my, I can't put it on my CV lah, but if I step aside, this is something that I really appreciate the opportunity to.
You can put it in your LinkedIn profile lah.
Maybe I don't know.
Anyway.
So this guy, literally Microsoft back then, we literally helped him or handheld him or groomed him from university, right? Okay. So Microsoft has this thing called Imagine Cup, right? Where it's a global competition
between universities,
right? So he had a team that was the champion for Malaysia, and then so the champion here will then be sent to compete at the worldwide level, and in between we really invest a lot of time, to polish them up and support them and things like that. So this one is a great story for the the value or the good stuff Microsoft has done. We literally from a student, we exposed him to this global competition. That's where he picked up skills and a global view of things. And then after he graduated, he wanted to start up a company, right? So he and in fact it was his teammates from Imagine Cup that started a company together, right?
Okay.
And they built this point of sale software company called Zilnex, right?
Was that the product that they built for the competition itself?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah. Because student competition tend to be more, all those Millennium Development Goals thing, UN things, more
not
goody stuff
can make money
not the commercial stuff.
Right. So his teammates are the ones who
so they started up this company, where we obviously saw a lot of potential in as well. In basically a modern cloud-based version of point of sales, right?
Okay.
And we're talking about this is about 10, easily about 10 years ago, right? Nowadays it's more common, right? You see iPad point of sales everywhere, but back then, when things were all pretty much still Windows based, he of course he started off with Windows based, but he was the first one to move it to cloud based.
Right.
Everyone else was still very much client server or just totally standalone. Right. So he started with that. So credit to him, he built a great product. And when we had some requirements from some of the enterprise customers, of course, he started off by selling to SMEs, your small 1-2 man shop and all that, which is great. But then we then got a request from Mydin, who it wasn't to replace their point of sales in their Mydin stores, but back then they were also involved in this project called CRIM, right? Kedai Rakyat Satu Malaysia.
Okay.
If you recall that.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
And anyway, so that kind of gave them one big break where we actually introduced and we brought in and we pitched together with Zilnex to Mydin, to choose their solution to roll out for this network of stores. And I think I can't remember now, but it was quite a significant number. So I always thought that was amazing how we were able to help a small local company like that. And then I think specifically for him, I hope I'm correct, but I believe I introduced him to his first VC as well.
Okay.
And then he got funded, and then the rest is history. After that, he was acquired. The VC managed to exit. Everybody's happy, except me. I didn't get anything.
Should have put money in there too. There you go.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? So that's something I'm trying to do now, do a bit of angel investment on the side.
Right.
So that's an amazing story I wanted to share. I hope it's accurate. If not, you can always come out and.
So that's interesting, right? So, in fact, that competition itself, I know there was a bunch of. Accenture not as structured as that, but Microsoft, I know IBM they all had these university programs.
Correct.
But I think the primary reason for that was for recruitment. right? Because they wanted to early on identify the top engineers, right? Do their projects and then suck them in.
Yeah.
But your example is almost like, well, it's okay. You can kind of channel the Microsoft platform and products through those guys developing it.
Yeah.
But there is alignment of goal, right?
Correct.
Because if you're successful, then
So I think for
they're successful
Microsoft
too,
it's
right?
slightly different. It's not so much for recruitment per se. And to be fair, it's just because Microsoft's footprint was so much bigger, right?
Yeah.
Our, it's all about getting developers to build on top of the products.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like seeding the next generation of users and the next generation of developers rather than recruitment.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of other companies too, right? The tech companies. It is pretty much a lot about recruitment, right? You do all these programs, right? It's just to identify the top ones and then try and hire, right? So, but I guess the guys who have platforms like you guys, or even like AWS, right? It's all about, hey, use the platform.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. It's
And
about
then
exposure when
yeah,
they're young, use the platform.
And Alibaba right now, right? Alibaba Cloud is quite aggressive right now too.
I'm sure they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah,
It's the same playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go into that.
Yeah.
The mentoring part a little bit. Then. So
okay.
now you back home, okay lah, COVID lah, what to do. But I know you were doing a lot of virtual stuff. So
so
how was that?
So I'm officially attached to so I do a lot of coaching in with Proficio under CGP,
right?
Proficio/Cradle, right?
With Dr. Siva and the gang.
Yeah. So with CGP as well as SCP, it's two different programs, right? So where they literally assign a company to me for 12 months. So this is something I've been doing even when I was in Apple. Not many of my colleagues know about this, but then let me also quickly say this is all above board,
right?
And Apple being such a secretive company and everything, there's actually a lot of restrictions, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of felt I had to leave also, just too many restrictions on what I can do, right? So even things like doing coaching on the side, I wasn't able to do, So again, from my time in Microsoft, I was already doing this. When I joined Apple, naturally some of them also reach out to me and say, "Hey, can I continue doing this?" And then when I brought it up, my manager said, "No, you cannot."
Right.
It's very clear from a policy perspective, you cannot do this. So okay, I had to turn them away, right? Pause, right? But then about 4 or 5 years later, after I kind of established myself internally, then I thought, okay, maybe now a bit more credibility within Apple. Then I asked again. My manager was very supportive. Right? She straight away said, "Yeah, go for it. I'll support you." And that's when it really struck me the amount of restriction. It literally took me close to 2 years to get an approval, right? Because it had to go through HR, it had to go through legal. They wanted to look at all the contracts and things like that.
Did you have to go to global or
that one I don't know because once it goes up, it's a big black hole to me already, right?
But as far as you know, it's like 2 years later.
And I mean, it's not as if I don't follow up. I keep nudging and asking, it's always still the decision is still with someone so high up there, And then in the end, finally, they said, no, actually, in the end, the answer was also very vague.
Right.
But it wasn't a no.
And that's good enough, right?
That's good enough, My manager said, that's as good as a yes, really. Just go and do it.
Yeah.
So that's when I, formally came out and So I've been doing this with Proficio and Cradle for about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been some time. Yeah.
So the difference, I guess, now is you are able to dedicate a lot more time on it.
Yeah. So now I can take up a bit more companies compared to before, because previously it was very clear I had to do it on my own time, So there were some sessions that had to be face to face. Then I had to take leave and apply for annual leave and go and do it. Yeah. So now I have a bit more time to take on a bit more.
I mean, I appreciate that all these companies would have their own challenges and difficulties, right? But are you able to share some general observations in terms of the kind of help that the companies that you've been helping out with need? Some general lessons that startups and scale ups would want to know.
It's actually quite a wide variety. Let me see. I think, and I think there's a. Let me just divert a bit. I think this is you brought up a great question that probably is top of mind to a lot of coaches, is that you can pretty much anticipate any type of questions or any types of scenarios they're going to throw at you, and sometimes ask for your input, and then you, right at the beginning, right at the onset, you'll be wondering, hey, how it's impossible for me to be able to have value add to every type of company, at various stages and all that, right? But let's talk about what I can bring to the table, based on my experience and all that, right? Which is something I always tell them right at the beginning, is leveraging on my experience in working with large tech companies and all that, multinationals. I think it's always about how I can help them with their go-to-market strategy. I think a lot of times they may not have thought things through properly, right? They kind of know, okay, this is one potential set of users, but then when you try to dig deeper into, can they afford to pay, by serving this segment, can you actually make money and things like that? Sometimes they don't think that through properly. I always push them on a channel strategy, because I'm a firm believer in that. Right. Of course, that works for some companies, not all. Right.
Go deep into that a little bit. When you say channel strategy, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you, a channel strategy, meaning resellers to help you sell, right? So it's basically about lowering your cost of sales. Instead of hiring your own people to go and sell, leverage on a network of partners who can then help you sell. So that the cost is not on your books. You just pay them a margin when they sell. So you pay for performance, right? So I think a lot of companies don't, maybe at the beginning, they don't really necessarily understand the power of working with a channel.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, when they do have a product, okay lah, so now how do I get this to the hands of my customers, right? And invariably the conversation becomes, okay lah, how do I get close to that customer, right?
Yeah.
I need to then expand my sales team.
Correct.
It's all my website.
Yeah.
Right? And that's it lah.
Yeah.
But I guess having actually access to resellers, if you like, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I don't think people really understand the model to even go into it. I think that's the challenge, right?
And I would say, until you, if you don't plan to build a channel strategy, let me see, how do I say this? Essentially, it will also influence the way you build your product, right? Because if you want to leverage on a channel, then your product has to be a lot more solid, a lot more productized, rather than being reliant on a massive customization. Right? Because you want to be able to build up your resellers' competency to sell that product.
If it's too complex for them,
exactly,
then forget that lah. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Which I think for the insurance industry is fascinating, right? So that's why obviously we use the agency network a lot.
Correct.
Especially for the more complex products,
Yeah.
right? Because they are.
Yeah.
Right. And you can imagine if this was 100 years ago when you set up an insurance company, right? You say, hey, okay, I want to go sell, a live product, right? And you don't have the concept of agents.
Yeah.
Then that's a lot of people on your payroll, man, to go and do that, right? Yeah. Instead.
And then I think the other thing that I spend a lot of time advising a lot of these companies is to focus. I think a lot of people tend to get distracted by, let's say if I'm building a software, but an opportunity comes up, hey, this customer asked me to build something else for him. It's very hard to say no to money. Right? But I think that is actually one of the biggest shortfall of a lot of Malaysian software companies. You realize we don't really have a very strong household name in software, enterprise software, for example. Right?
I can only think of Silver Lake lah. That's about it lah.
Yeah, correct. That's the only one, right? And that's because a lot of them tend to get distracted, with all these projects that come along the way, and then they kind of lose focus in building a product. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I distraction, yes, but you can sympathize the business where
Needs
you
lah.
need to go
The
pay the
business
bills lah, right?
yeah.
You need to balance. But as you say, but the more you pursue that,
Yeah.
then your core, you go further and further from your core, I guess.
Yeah.
But you need to pay
No,
the
I
bills.
totally
Then,
agree with that.
that's the dynamic, like the challenge,
Correct,
right?
Yeah. So one thing is the good thing is I see the trend changing, especially now with software as a service model, where as the market matures, market as in the end users, right? So I think Malaysia is still not is slowly maturing, but I think if we draw if we look towards some other more mature markets, then you'll see that more and more customers will put in the effort to source for solutions on their own, do their own research online, and then that kind of opens up. That actually gives the opportunity to companies to build and focus on a good cloud-based product, and of course they need to invest in of course a good product and a bit of digital marketing, SEO, and all that. But the self-discovery will actually help them to get more customers, without having such a high cost of acquisition, customer acquisition. So that's the good thing, that I think that the trend is changing, and this gives this new breed of software companies in Malaysia a bit more leeway to just focus and double down on building a great product company. I think that's the good thing that's happening and in the software as a service space.
I was just talking to a company a couple of weeks ago, right? Where I'm heading towards the COVID right now, right? Where this has actually forced a bunch of companies to actually take a pause, and actually giving them breathing space, right? For the ones that they could, they had some breathing space to relook at the products, right? And then hit the market again in a slightly different way, right? Where they could have been distracted, if you say, before, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you see the companies that you are mentoring now, the impact of the current situation?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think most of the companies have been affected, right? So even from the perspective, even if they are some of them as simple as in the MCO, their customers just totally their customers' business could still be good, doing well, but just because of the change in how they work, now it's all work from home, can't do face-to-face meeting and all that. All engagements pretty much stop. At least for the first 1 or 2 months, right? And that may not mean it's a lost business, but I mean, everything has been stalled for 2 or 3 months, right? To get the momentum back, and the cash flow, everything is affected, right? Some have been definitely I think everybody is impacted in one way or another.
This is a challenge.
Yeah. So I think those who are in retail would be more particularly hit even more.
Retail, and travel.
Right? Travel, retail,
hospitality. That sucks, man.
I was pre-COVID. I was about to make an angel investment. In fact, term sheet, everything went out.
Right.
To a travel company. Well, okay, not travel company in the space related to travel.
Right.
But when it hit, we still kept in touch, and we assess month on month and how's that's going and all that. But in the end, I think we both agree that it no longer made sense.
Put that in the
So travel has been very badly hit. Definitely.
Yeah, it has. And I mean it. And you don't know what the new benchmark is, right? Because it will not go back to where it was before in terms of overall sales and revenues, right? Because everything's suppressed, right?
Yeah. So this company that I'm talking about is also one of the companies that I mentored as part of Cradle, part of CGP, right? I have no doubt they will survive and they will try, but they have to pivot.
Yeah.
It's just that whatever the investment decision, that valuation based on the previous model just didn't work anymore. And that's when we decided to say, hey, it doesn't make sense anymore based on the previous model. But I have the highest expectations. I have the highest regards for them. I think they will pivot and do very well, just because they have such a strong team over there. Yeah.
And I think that's a good point, right? A lot of the successes comes back to the team, right?
Correct.
To the people, right?
Yeah.
The business is the business,
Yeah.
right? But you are fast enough or nimble enough to say, hey, you know what? Let's shift a little bit,
Yeah.
because the mindset of the entrepreneur is still there,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
The entrepreneurs don't die, the businesses die,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So I think a great example of that is somebody I have a bit more insight into as well, which is StoreHub.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know
I've heard of
StoreHub,
them.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
So StoreHub is a point of sales, for, as you can imagine, their customers are all the SMEs. The bulk of their customers are SMEs in retail, F&B, and all that. I would say, yeah, the first couple of months would have been extremely tough on them, right?
Yeah.
But I think credit to the founder, Wai Hong, is that they reacted very quickly, and also credit to them is that some of the product roadmap that they had was, luckily they could quickly accelerate that to, and just totally bring everything forward, prioritize on that.
Did they do the
And-
groceries thing at the end? Was it StoreHub?
No, not
No,
groceries
okay.
thing, right?
No, somebody
But
else.
basically they pivoted very quickly. Sorry, not to say pivot. It's still their core business is still providing point of sales and all that. But they quickly brought forward their product development to launch a new feature or a new service called BIP,
Okay.
which is it now allows their customers to do ordering and delivery,
Ah,
right?
okay.
It was in the news. There was a big hoo-ha about how much Grab and Foodpanda charges, right?
Yes,
They
there
charge
were 30% or
30%,
something, yeah.
right? And when you think about it, that 30%, then how much margin is left?
Yeah,
To the food delivery, to the F&B guy, right?
that's right.
So BIP or BIPIT is on the other. They I think they only take about 2% of the margin, right? But it's a slightly different model. I think, to be fair, I think for Grab and all that, a lot of the value they bring is in the discovery, right? As in, they can bring customers to you because they provide the discovery. They allow customers to discover you, right? Whereas I think for BIPIT, it's more about, you have a strong customer base, you have your own customer database, right? You know who they are. Now you can allow them to do ordering and delivery.
Yeah.
So you can either pick up or deliver to them at a much lower cost.
Or at least a bulk of that cost goes to the riders lah, right? As opposed to the platform, right?
Yeah.
To BP. Yeah.
No. So actually for Grab, I think the riders already get paid, right? You pay the 5 ringgit or 7 ringgit. I'm sure they take a cut
It
of
was
that
less.
as well.
I think it was almost like 5 per trip or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And then
Or even-
on top of that, whatever is on your bill, they take another 30%, right? Yeah. But again, I think it's slightly different objectives.
Yeah.
But so I think this is credit to Wai Hong and StoreHub, is how they quickly saw that opportunity to accelerate this forward. This, as well as another feature, which is something that they've been working on in the pipeline as well, which is a tabletop ordering, QR code ordering, and all that.
Oh, I'd love to get those guys on, man.
Yeah.
Have a chat.
Oh
with them.
yeah, definitely.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one is.
Yeah, so it is that those kind of entrepreneurs, lah, right? Who are
Yeah.
able to see the tidal wave coming.
Yeah.
And then, instead of doing sun lounges, you better go change to boats, lah,
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, so then just wanted to talk about yourself then. Okay, so now you've been doing this pretty much full time, right? Dabble a little bit of angel investing in a bit. So
Yeah.
it's been what, 4 months now? No, April, did you say you finished?
April,
May, June,
yeah.
July.
3
Yeah,
months plus
it's
lah.
been 3 months.
Yeah.
Any views of what's happening in the next 6 months for yourself?
For
This year,
myself,
eh?
So I think just now you spoke about how brave of me to just cut and just throw letter and walk out without anything in hand, right? Okay lah, it wasn't as totally as blatant as that lah. So there was some plans in hand previously. There were some engagements where I would have gotten some income.
Okay.
But obviously those have all been affected by COVID as
sure,
well, right? So right now I'm still open. I'm still undecided on. The good thing is there's no urgency. I'm not desperately applying for jobs or whatever. A couple of companies have reached out. So I think just courtesy, I'm talking to them. I'm not gonna say no, but I think the good thing is I have a luxury to choose lah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the good thing. Again, if you look at my job experience so far, 20 years, I've always worked for quite typical as a big American tech company, right?
You can't get more typical than IBM, Apple, and Microsoft.
Exactly, right? So who's next, right? I think everybody is probably
No, now you need to go to the tech, like the Googles, the.
no. I bet you if there's a betting pool, all the money will be on either Amazon or Google, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know lah. I've always wondered what it would be like to work for a local company. You know, I've not had that
Local tech.
Local tech or actually lah. The good thing is now tech is any company, anything you put the word tech, you have prop tech, you have agri tech, everything you just slap a tech on it, it becomes tech already. Right? So that's a good thing,
true.
right?
That's true.
So I think that's something that would be interesting. You know, if local company, because come on, the Apples and the Amazon, they don't really need me to help them grow, right? They will grow by themselves. But if I can take my experience and bring a bigger impact to a local company, I think that would be a amazing.
Would you
next
go
chapter.
into, since you're mentoring a lot of companies, right? Would you do a startup yourself?
I won't. I won't do a bootstrap startup. Okay, where if you're going to be starting from scratch and you're going to have to put in that 12, 18 hours and all that, that's something quite clear lah.
That's a young man's life, not with a daughter.
Even though quite interestingly, I think some research have come out that the more successful founders tend to be in the 40s.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That was the fintech phenomena, right?
Yeah.
That was born out of the crash.
Yeah.
All these bankers got fired.
Yeah.
And okay lah, shit, what to do? Start, right?
So that's why I wanted to qualify that, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a startup that has a bit more structure or a bit more that I don't have to develop from scratch, that I don't have to go and find somebody to build the MVP, and build.
So
the
there is a
first
base,
version.
right? So there is a base that
right,
that
or
you're
there's clearly
passionate
a
about,
very strong technology founder and you've got good funding and all that. Then maybe But then again, if that's the case, then I probably wouldn't be I can be part of the core team, but not necessarily the CEO. But again, it's just about priorities. I don't think I want to put in that amount of time. I'd rather spend the time with my family.
A scale up rather than a startup, essentially, right?
Yeah. So that's one.
Yeah, that's quite. I was gonna say, it's a different. In terms of looking for a local company then to grow, right? Because it's ironic how everybody else, the career types anyway, will go the other way, right?
Right.
Oh, local company, time to go to a multinational, right?
Correct.
Time to go to the big one.
Now
Right?
I'm on the other side,
So, I think from an impact standpoint, you have a lot more impact than going to the big pond, right?
Correct. So that's something that has crossed my mind recently. So
but it's nice to be in a position where, hey, you got time. You're not pressured to look, right? Sometimes you lose that good judgment when you're under pressure, right?
Yeah.
So
So that's why I think currently is I just want to make sure that I don't I keep in touch with the industry, with what's happening, with the pulse on what's happening. So that's why I'm still quite involved. So I think this is a good segue into another company that I'm currently an advisor for, which is outside of your Proficio and Cradle type of companies and all that. It's an IoT solution company.
Okay.
Right. So of course, I think nowadays the word IoT means different things to so many people, right? So even a watch or a smart fridge is called IoT and all that, right? But this company is quite interesting. They focus very much in I would say the industrial IoT,
okay.
Right? That means really for the
big machinery and machines.
So, which is why I talk about agri-tech and all that. All right. So right now it's all about. So there's a lot of focus, a lot of requirements, a lot of customer interest in the agriculture space. Okay. So if you take a step back and look at how we look at IoT, I think nowadays there's this new word being thrown around where data is the new oil, right? but just like oil, it needs to be extracted from somewhere, right? So the space we play in is essentially is like in the upstream of the oil industry. We are the ones that extract all the data out.
Okay.
So we put in a lot of sensors,
Hmm.
right? So if it's agriculture, then we put sensors all around the farm,
Right.
right?
So these are what? Temperature, humidity, those
Correct.
kind of
Yeah,
stuff lah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
things like that. I think it's not new per se, but we are leveraging on a newer mode of connectivity, right? So if we talk about IoT to a lot of companies or to a lot of people, they probably think about leveraging on LTE or 4G, using SIM card and things like that, right? Yeah, and I think those are definitely one of it. But IoT, there's actually a few standards in terms of connectivity. The one that we are currently focusing on is this network called Sigfox.
Okay.
Have you heard about it?
No.
Again, most people wouldn't have heard about it. But essentially, it is a low power radio frequency base.
Okay.
So it doesn't ride on the telco network. We don't have to work with Maxis or Cellcom, whatever. It's a separate network by itself. It's operated locally by a company called Esperanti,
Okay.
right? Which is essentially the connectivity provider. But it is lower cost, low power, which means the scenarios that are very relevant to this is no power scenario.
Wow.
What I mean by no power is
or solar like
the sensors are literally battery powered. You put it in the middle of a farm, you don't expect to find a plug point there, right?
Exactly.
So this is where we can put sensors everywhere around the farm, and I'll probably share a few scenarios after that. And the sensors will last for about 2 to 3 years.
On a single battery.
On a single battery, right? And that's where you can start to collect lots of data back to it. Again, the analogy with oil extraction, right? Once you have all the oil, then only you can start the processing and do your analytics and whatnot. Right? So this is a company I'm spending a lot of time with right now, trying to help them with their growth as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are already use cases for are they provider of the IoT devices themselves or the analytics behind it also?
Okay, so it's actually the entire solution. So they don't build the sensors because the sensors are quite common nowadays. Right. In fact, we work with a lot of companies in Penang who build the sensors.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Then again,
I thought you were gonna say China or something.
China and of course that as well. But from their experience, I think they actually say the Penang guys have much better quality.
Right.
Yeah. And and it's nearer as well. Right?
Yeah.
So they do that. Then the connectivity, and on the software side, they build the dashboard as well. Right. So, of course, another big challenge for this IoT play is there are so many different standards, and there's not necessarily a proper way to extract and collate all the data. There's no dashboard. So they saw this as a big gap in the market as well. Okay. So they are building that software stack as well. They call it the Satu dashboard. It stands for their company name, Unified Dashboard. And so that's the space that they play in. But essentially what they do is they will go in, talk to the customer, understand what they need, and recommend what sensors to put. And then after that, deploy and be able to present that in a meaningful way. And there are APIs available if they then need to extract that to something else. And then all the AI stuff, the machine learning stuff will come in. That's a work in progress that will come in as well. And it's challenging though, because every industry is very different. Right? So right now we tend to focus a lot on agriculture. So we're talking to customers in pineapple, in vegetable farms, in durian farms, palm oil, and
there's enough scale for the local farmers to go into IoT, you think?
There is. Especially now, I think agriculture in most countries will receive a big boost because of COVID-19. And, there's this awareness now on food security and how important it is. Right? So that coupled with the fact food security, food safety, and you need to increase yield, I think that's where we see a lot of opportunities. So agriculture is just one of it, right? Again, I talk about where the use case is more of a no power scenario. So asset tracking is also another very important thing, right? So again, we talk about this could be a farm or a manufacturing ground, or or a airport, right? Anywhere where you have a lot of assets all over the place, or your assets could be actually nationwide, and you don't have visibility. Imagine you can put a tag there, a small sensor there. For 3 years, you don't have to worry about it, and you will know where they are. Right?
And this network is almost like a GSM network across Malaysia.
So currently, the coverage we cover the Sigfox coverage is about 85% of the population.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So we have and the good thing is to set up additional base station.
So, but what's the usage for that network right now? You were saying that operator operates it, right? But who's using that network today?
So I think just like any other operator, it's a big investment for them to set this up, and now they are trying to get all the use case to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like setting up a big Wi-Fi network, right? And then
it's just like if a new telco wants to come up, right? It's the same thing, right?
Whatever bandwidth that they bought from the government, right?
But the good thing is this one, the cost of setting up the network is a lot lower. And in saying that, I think it's easier for them to expand the coverage. And again, I think the use case is quite different, right? So this would be very relevant for those where there's no power, but at the same time you want to track, right? So this will also apply to tracking people as well. Again, could be on a farm or on any construction site, because sometimes you tell the workers you're supposed to do this, focus on this area today, right? But you don't know actually whether they went there or not, right? So at least now with this you have a bit of visibility, right? Insurance could be an interesting use case as well. Let's say from a logistics perspective, logistics insurance. If you talk about covering insurance of high value items, I'm not talking about tracking the fleet of the car or the lorries and all that. But imagine if you are a shipment of iPhone, for example, right? Or Mona Lisa is coming to Malaysia. Somebody needs to insure it while it's here, right? What if you could put a tracker, right, on the Mona Lisa or on the shipment of, I'm sure from your actuarial side, they will decide that, hey, now that we have visibility, the risk is lower, I can lower my premium, or I lower my risk and things like that. Could be a huge advantage for insurance companies, right? Yeah. So this is where I'm spending a bit of time as well, and to me this is exciting, because it is opening up new things for me to learn, new industries to go deeper into as well.
Yeah, it's because it's foundational, right?
Yeah.
And
correct.
then what are all the different use cases that you can build on top of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then the other thing that I'm spending some time on is on my condo. So this is where the prop tech comes in.
Right.
So I am the chairman of my condo.
Right.
And it is a 20-year-old condo in PJ.
Okay.
But from a location wise, it's amazing, right? And there's no more land to build anything else. So it's but it is about 20 years old, and we are in the midst of we realize there's a lot of things we need to do to modernize it and bring it to current living expectations,
right?
Because whatever you built 20 years ago, it's not built for.
It's aged,
right? I'm not talking just about the physical, aging or things are falling apart or whatever. I think we do a pretty good job in maintenance, but people's expectations have changed, right? Now they want more facilities. Right?
Yeah.
Something as basic as the way you design a condo or any large dwelling 20 years ago, from a security perspective, would not meet a security standard of today. So for example, and again, this is something that we went through the last couple of years. I think about last year or the year before, we actually decided to rebuild the main guardhouse. And something as simple as, in the past, all your boom gates and all that, the way they are positioned, they don't necessarily cover all the corners.
Right.
There are a lot of gaps. People can walk through, and then if the guards are not looking,
Yeah.
people can come through and all that. Not saying that my condo has a lot of security issues, like we don't, but then again,
These are considerations.
we
right?
knew
Yeah,
we had to
yeah.
tighten up things. Right? So even something like that, we totally rebuilt the guardhouse, look at all the security systems and things like that,
But where does the prop tech angle come in?
No, so actually this is my appeal, or an open invitation to any of the guys. If you have anything interesting to propose to us,
Okay.
we will be very interested
right.
look at. And to be fair, I think in the last we've got a bunch of very committed members, MC members,
Right.
and actually for those of you who stay in a condo, please be very appreciative to your JMB or your MC members, right?
Your voluntary members.
Because first of all, we are volunteers. We don't get paid.
Yeah.
We don't get allowances or anything like that, right? And we put in a lot of time to do this. I mean, for my condo, at least we have a management meeting at least once a month. It's always on a Saturday. We spend 3 to 4 hours just to go through all these things, right? Second thing, I think a lot of people assume being a MC member is like on a board of director, and you just come to the meeting and approve things and you don't have to do anything, right? Actually, that's not the case, because whatever projects or initiatives they want to take, there's always a MC member that takes the lead on it, because the management office is operational. They need to keep the lights on, right? They don't have the bandwidth to focus on new initiatives or modernization stuff and things like that, or if you want them to do that, then you're taking away the bandwidth from your operational stuff, then things start falling apart, then you also blame them, so coming back to this, be appreciative. And thankfully we've got a very committed bunch in my condo. We've done quite a lot of things in the last 2 or 3 years, that thankfully part of it is timing as well, that I think we've been even because of COVID, we've managed to benefit from that even during COVID. So for example, 2 years ago we decided to bring in parcel lockers in our condo, right? I think back then we were probably the first condo, the first residence, or one of the first few to bring in a parcel locker, right?
Who was the operator for that?
Popbox.
Okay.
Yeah. They're still around. To be honest, I think that's one of the risks we take by partnering with a lot of these startup companies. Sometimes you wonder whether they'll be around in the next few years or not, right? So I think so parcel lockers, you talk about during the MCO, right? Of course, we all know e-commerce went through the roof. Same thing for us, the utilization of Popbox in our condo went up by 3 times in that. And something like parcel lockers actually makes a lot of sense nowadays. Why we went into it was obviously when there are deliveries, sometimes, of course, apart from the convenience, if the resident is not at home now, you have somewhere to store it. The other thing we look at it it's more of a security risk as well, right? Because you have to let the courier guy go up, and then when he's up there, it's roaming free, right? Then so that was actually one of the reasons why we brought in a parcel locker, so that now you don't have to stand it up, you can actually put it into the parcel locker, right? So in hindsight, it was luckily we had that because now we can do actual contactless delivery, right? You don't actually send to the resident, just put it there. So that's one part of it. There's just so many things that we have modernized. We've put in LED lights. We are slowly moving all our lighting to LED, and we've saved about 10% of our electricity costs. We save, let me put that into perspective. We save about 40,000 ringgit a year just by changing to LED lights. And we haven't even changed all yet, because we are doing progressive. If it fails, then we change, rather than
and the cost just keeps going down, right?
Exactly. Right now we are not tech related, but we have 2 tennis courts that we have to redo because of the waterproofing. Our tennis courts are on top of the car park, right? And we are adding in a half-court basketball court on one of the tennis court, and then the other tennis court, it can also double up as a futsal court. Again, times have changed, right? Now
the
futsal
kids,
is more interesting.
Actually, not even kids, just
Yeah.
young adults. Just
Young adults as well, right? So this is where we are part of modernizing. We are bringing in more and more facilities into it as well. We are also wiring up our whole compound. We are putting fiber. And the first thing we're going to roll out is more CCTVs. Again, it wasn't designed. Our condo right now wasn't designed 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't have such security risks. Now people expect more CCTVs everywhere.
Yeah. Hence all the blind spots and all that.
Correct,
that old
yeah.
design would have, right?
So we're putting in a lot of CCTV. We're going to be putting up digital notice boards and things like that. So bringing our condo into the 21st century. So in saying that, I think our condo is very open to adopting and trying new things.
Cool.
So if there's any interesting solutions out there. So for example,
don't bring it over to
we are spending about 20%. We spend about 450,000 ringgit a year on security. Security.
I don't know whether that's a lot or little.
Yeah, but in absolute dollars, it's a lot, right?
Okay.
You're spending 450,000 ringgit a year on security services.
Yeah.
Right. We are spending, I think, about 200,000 on cleaning services. Can all those things? Is there a way to automate or bring newer technology where we can lower down the cost?
Yeah.
We'll be interested to look at
maintenance and all that.
things like that. Yeah.
Cool lah. Hey, cool man. It's 1.5 hours.
Oh man,
time flies.
Huh?
It does. It does. I want to bring you back in next time.
Yeah.
Right. I think once things have settled down a little bit, it'll be interesting to see where your adventure continues. And also, perhaps with some of the companies that you're mentoring, it'll be interesting to see where they get to. Right.
Okay. So Medcard is one of the companies I'm mentoring, which is why I.
Oh, are they? Okay. Well, they are actually here.
Yeah.
Okay lah. Anyway, thanks a lot for coming in.
Okay.
All the best.
Thank you.
With the thing. Yeah, take your time to find the good one.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Because when you do it, you're going to be another 7 years in there, right, at least. So it
Get a
better,
track record,
it better be a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter.
Okay, man.
Nice lot, man.
Thanks.
All right, bye. Sorry, what were you asking? So these things are long on purpose because one is I myself enjoy the long ones. Right? Because then you can just have it playing at the background and then you're doing other things, right? It's not like you want to focus. But the other thing is once I have this long form, I can then, when I have the time, start cutting it down, take the 5 minutes, if there's topics which are...
Okay. So currently it's pretty much unedited lah.
It is unedited.
Unedited, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Except for some obvious blunders lah, but so far no, everything goes in.
It is quite a big effort to try to edit. It's
a
full-time job.
It is. And that was one of the things that I didn't realize in the beginning. Right? It's always a good idea. Oh, cool lah, we just record it and then, and then
unless you
after that you
assign someone to help you.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah, but it's fun. So,
it's tedious,
but it is tedious, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if I record for about an hour and a half. You have to go through at least twice that, right? To edit, to cut, and all that. So instead, all I do now is just do the front, do the back, do the volume overall, send. It's done. It's done.